Hey there, everyone. Welcome to A Slice of Life with Kelly and John. Today, our guest is Pete Bremy. Did I get it
That's
right?
right.
Pete Bremy.
You got it.
So let me tell you about Pete, folks. And in order to get to Pete's part when he entered the movie, when he came into the movie, at least in my life, uh, it starts back technically in 1967, when most of you weren't even born, but I was about 13, 14 years old, and WNEWFM in New York, the big underground rock station at the time, played this song, which I only knew as a Supreme song when he said, here's this band, Vanilla Fudge, gonna play You Keep Me Hanging On. I'm like, what? Supreme? Nobody covers the Supremes. But then this song played, this this mini symphony played that, and what got me even more about this particular band on this particular hearing of this song was that it really was just only four guys. It was the perfect rock band ensemble: guitar, bass, drums, and a guy who knew how to play a Hammond B3. And in my neighborhood, the only two bands, well, in my world, the only two bands that really rocked with Hammond B3s at that time were the band that we probably first heard, which was from England, Whiter Shade of Pale, Procol Harum. They really knocked us out with the Hammond B3, that organ. And then in America, there was a song called Good Lovin' by the Rascals that had this
hmm
great Hammond B3 sound to it. My problem, even though Pete and I are friends with a couple of the guys from the Rascals, and uh, the problem I had with the Rascals was that they never had a bass player that they performed live with. Of course, they did on the recordings, and Felix knew how to do it with his feet on the foot pedals of a Hammond B3. But the point is, they were the ones that influenced us with this early B3 sound, and then the fudge came along.
hmm
So it wasn't just then that I found out, wow, this was a great act. And of course, you go out, and I probably bought the album at that time for 2.99 or 3.99. Um, and I found out that two of these guys came from New Jersey, and they lived right by me, or they at least came from towns that were right by me. I mean, I was in Secaucus, and one was in Bayonne, which was all of maybe 4 miles to the south, and one was in Ridgefield, which was about 4 miles to the north.
hmm
And that to me just knocked me out. And then, of course, the rest of the album did it to me. It really was, just a fantastic first album. All cover tunes, all
hmm
tunes that were made famous by other people. As crazy, granted, two Beatles songs that they did unbelievable versions of. But then who covered Sonny and Cher? Nobody. They did. And they took the Zombies, She's Not There, and did that. And Donovan, no, not Season of the Witch was the next album. They did this like 9 minute version of Eleanor Rigby, which was amazing. And for some reason, I have no idea why my thing just switched and there's a hand
Why did you
on.
raise your hand?
I did not. I did not. Maybe
That's
because
weird.
AI is reading my hands up, and
Yeah,
and
you're
uh,
like,
and it did that. Okay. And then see, Pete don't even know this. Okay, I'm sorry, Pete. I know this is your interview, but I'm in, I Kelly could tell you I've already spoken more in this interview than I have in 70 interviews that we've done already. Okay?
Okay.
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 So then I find out that across the street from my high school. I mean, literally, I would see this guy's house every day, and and I would see him, and he had this long, great rock hair, and he drove a Jaguar, and right across the street, and his real name was Johnny Leone, but the world knew him as Trade Martin.
Oh boy.
And and
Hmm.
Trade Martin wrote a song that the Fudge did on their album that is a classic song, which is called Take
Take
Me
me
for a Little
for a little
While.
while.
But
Hmm.
oddly enough, he didn't write it for the Fudge. There was actually a record out years earlier that some woman recorded
Right.
that this was her song, and that's where these guys got it. But anyway, and so wow, they did a song from the guy right across the street from me. And when I was 18 years old and I got to meet him, my first introduction was like, "Oh man, I love the Vanilla Fudge's version of your song." When I finally met this guy, and I was a starstruck 18-year-old kid. But
Huh.
anyway, so the Fudge, great. The first album, fantastic. The second album, nobody understood. Uh,
Myself included.
that even the guys in the Fudge, it was
The
called
fudge never didn't understand it either. So
it was called The Beat Goes On, and it was, it was now maybe late 67, early 68, Sergeant Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour. Everybody was sort of making these what they thought were concept albums. And so their manager, if I'm not mistaken, I forget the manager's name at the time.
oh, Shadow Morton.
Yeah, thank you very much.
George
And the
Shadow
producer.
Morton.
Yes, he was the producer too, if I'm not mistaken. He
Hmm.
got them to do this album, which they had this great following, and then the next thing was like, what the hell is this? Nobody got. Okay. Time goes on, they come out with their third album, which was called Renaissance. And
Hmm.
they wrote most of the songs. I think the only one they didn't was Donovan's Season of the Witch. But the band wrote most of the songs. And again, four pieces. If there was overdubs, you didn't know it. It was just these four great guys and four great voices. And the Renaissance album was fantastic. Okay,
Hmm.
now it's March of 1969.
Hmm.
So my I'm 15, not yet 16 years old. My brother-in-law holds up two tickets to the Fillmore East for the Vanilla Fudge,
Hmm.
or for Vanilla Fudge. It's not the Vanilla Fudge. It's Vanilla Fudge. And so of course I lose my mind. So we go there, and apparently Pete was at the same show that I was. He was in the audience with his friend. And uh, I don't recall the first group that opened, because in those days, folks, you paid $5.50 for the ticket on the floor,
Right.
4.50 for upstairs.
That was the
And
most expensive ticket.
and you
Oh,
saw
wow.
three bands, and the Joshua Light show behind the band. Okay. So
The first band was Scirocco.
Scirocco, an sort of unknown band, but
Hmm.
they traveled around on that tour. The middle band was a group called the Amboy Dukes, which at the
Hmm.
time we all knew because they had that song "Journey to the Center of Your Mind." Okay, and but and I'm sure Pete can verify this, as musicians, what we really liked about this song was this guitar player who had this, he used to play these big hollow body Gibsons that would have this amazing, this is before all the pedals on the floors, kids. This
Hmm.
is when guitar players were able to make the guitar sound great just by playing the guitar, and the sustain that this guy had was fantastic, which was good on the record. And so we get there, we get to our seats, and this band comes out called the Amboy Dukes. Well, Ted Nugent, whether you like the guy or not today, Ted Nugent at that time just annihilated me. This guy did things on the guitar and they were promoting what was called the Migration album at the time,
Hmm.
and they just knocked me out. I mean, he was amazing, and that was that. But what really mattered was then when the headliner came on, Vanilla Fudge. They did every song off the first album, every song off the third, the Renaissance album, and it was great. And the Fudge has always been my favorite band.
Oh, that's great.
Well, of course,
So
we have
Pete,
the
when do you
Beatles.
come into the picture?
We have the Beatles. Well, he just made a cameo at that point. But
Okay.
there's the Beatles, and then there was Frank Zappa and the Fudge were always tied for second place. Okay.
Hmm.
So in 69, the Fudge breaks up, more or less, 69, 70. The
Okay.
Fudge breaks up.
Early 70, early
Right.
1970.
Okay.
Right, early 70s. And there was actually what was supposed to happen was Jeff Beck and Rod Stewart were going to team up with the bass player and the drummer from the Vanilla Fudge. But unfortunately, Jeff Beck had I think a car accident or a motorcycle, some kind of accident,
Car accident.
Oh,
broke his hands or his wrist or whatever. And then, so Rod Stewart didn't want to wait around, and he came out with a song called Maggie May, which sort of cemented his career where he didn't need to be with another band, really.
right.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, Timmy Bogert, the bass player, and Carmine Appice, or Appice now, the drummer, they were like, well, what are we gonna do? So they got the lead singer from the Amboy Dukes, Rusty Day, and the guitar player from Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, or was it Electric Flag? Was he playing with Buddy
No, it was
Miles?
Mitch Ryder. It was Mitch
It was
Ryder.
Mitch Ryder.
Oh, it's definitely
Um,
Mitch Ryder. Yeah.
so he got the guitar player Jim McCarty from them, and they started what was called the world's best garage band of
Mhm.
this three-piece of musicians and a lead singer that played a great harmonica, and they started a group called Cactus. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, in 1971, early 71, they had just come out with their second album called One Way or Another. It was the first album that was recorded at Jimi Hendrix's Electric Lady Studios in New York City. Well, John D'Amore just happened to be in charge of the entertainment committee for his senior prom. And he knew who booked Cactus, Barcelona, Frank Barcelona, at Premier Talent at the time. And I made a call and I said, is Cactus going to be in the New Jersey area on this day at this time? And how much? And they told me, and we made arrangements for a limo to get the band in New York City because that night they were playing at the Fillmore East as Cactus.
Okay.
And we had the band picked up, had their rehearsal equipment brought to the Westmount Country Club in Cedar Grove, New Jersey.
Hmm.
And though we had a regular house band, I got to hang out with the band in the coat club. See, my hands were up and it did that again. Okay. So anyway, I got to hang out with the band in my tuxedo with my date at the table, with the band in the coat closet, a very smoky coat closet. And I got to hang out with these guys, my favorite band, next to the Beatles and Frank Zappa. And I got to introduce them. They played for an hour. We hung out for a little bit more. And then later on that night, I was with them backstage at the Fillmore for two shows. I took my date back home, went to the Fillmore, and
Yeah.
hung out with the band for two shows. And it was one of the greatest in my tuxedo, by the way, at 17 years old. Yeah. Okay. So Timmy and Carmine and I, over the years, became very good friends. Timmy and I
Hmm.
were actually best friends right up until the minute he passed away,
Hmm.
about 5 years ago. Um, so anyway, but Pete, when Timmy at a certain point had unfortunately a motorcycle accident, and it made being on stage for him sometimes difficult, often impossible, the Vanilla Fudge needed to find the right bass player to play the way Timmy played because Timmy's bass playing was so important to the way that band sounded. And Pete's the guy they got. And I have seen the Fudge several times since Pete joined the band, and I can tell you, there you go. There you go, Pete. Now you're in the picture.
Okay.
So what is it? So, and he's also played when Carmine also goes off from time to time and would do a
Okay.
Cactus reunion.
Let's hear
Uh,
from Pete how he got started in
yeah,
this.
Pete.
How
There you
did it
go. When
happen?
did you pick up the bass guitar, Pete?
Yeah.
I would say 1966, late 1966 or so. I played drums first, but not at 15 and 16 years old. It was kind of rough to cart the drums around without having somebody drive me. And most of my friends were lived in the neighborhood, so we'd walk or ride our bikes to each other's houses. So I wanted to learn to play guitar instead, but the other guy said, "Well, we have enough guitar players. We need a bass player." So and I said, "What's that?" And my best friend said, "Well, it's like a guitar, only it's got only four strings instead of six, and you only got to play one note at a time." So I said, "Oh, well, that's for me then." So it sounded a lot easier. So I got a bass for my an inexpensive bass for my birthday. I think that was in the fall of '66, and
Do you
we
remember
I
what
had,
kind? What kind was it?
it was a Hagstrom 2.
There you
It
go.
was. I wish I still had it. It became modified over the years. It was ended up. I put a Gibson pickup on it at one point, a few years later, and then it was wired stereo. I wired it stereo, so it had a lot of modifications on it. But it ended. I wish I still had it, but it ended up being stolen some years later. Yeah, it was stolen right out of my house, believe it or not.
Oh.
Yep, somebody broke in and stole in the house and stole my bass.
Mm.
But but
So in 66 and then, but 69, you see this band at the Fillmore. I'm sure you said, you'd have no concept that you would ever be playing with these guys.
Oh no, well, I actually saw them a lot, but long before that. I saw
Oh,
them in
really?
Oh yeah, I saw them for the first time in 1967. I
Where'd you
saw
grow
them.
up?
I grew up in Wayne, New Jersey,
Okay.
a town called Wayne, New Jersey. It's kind of a suburb of Paterson
Hmm.
in northern New Jersey. And um, speaking of WNEW, I had a really my another one of my best friends, Ed, who was also the rhythm guitarist in my first band. He was the guy that was always, yeah, let's go, you got to check out this band, check out that band. And he said, it turns out the Fudge were playing. They had released "You Keep Me Hanging On" as a single, but it hadn't really gone anywhere. But he heard of a place that was down the street from where we lived, and the Fudge were going to play there. And I'd never even heard of them at this point. He said, "No, we got to go check these guys out." So we did, and I know it was on the day before the first album was released. They hadn't made it yet, And I know that because Mark Stein announced it. It was one of the things I remember that he announced. Our album is coming out tomorrow. Be sure to pick it up, stuff like that. So and they just blew me away. Then I became an instant fan. I was the beat. It was like I'm like you. It was the Beatles for me before that. But so that was August of '67, and that's also the same month that Sergeant Pepper came out.
Yes, no,
Excuse me.
no.
And
Sergeant Pepper came out in England June 1st, in America June 2nd.
oh, I thought that was also in August, but I
No,
hadn't.
no. Magical Mystery Tour came out at either the end of August or very early September.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, but I bought the Fudge album, and all of a sudden the Beatles kind of took a back seat for me. I still loved them, but they kind of took a back seat for me, and I started going to every show I could because as they were progressing in their popularity, they were playing a lot of high
Yes,
school concerts in New
yes.
Jersey. So I got to see them a number of times there, and then by that time the first album took off, and that made them famous. And then then I saw them at the Fillmore. That's when I saw them at the Fillmore that we were there. But I was already a big fan. But still, no. I mean, somebody had told me that that I was going to play with these guys at that point. I said, yeah, you're out of your mind. Yeah, especially 50 years from now.
Right, right.
Yeah.
There you go. There
Or
you go.
40 years, was it 40 years from now? Yeah. So I all the times I saw them, I never met them. And that first place I saw them actually was in a very, very small venue. And I could have met them if I'd wanted to, but I was kind of intimidated because, I was 14 and these guys were, at that age, they're well, Mark and Carmine are only 5 years older than me, but 5 years at that age, from 14 to 19,
Yep, yep.
that's a lot different than from 70 to 75. It's a
Oh,
lot,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
a lot different at that age. So they were kind of intimidating. So I chickened out and never did meet them at that point. But I bought all their albums, and then I was still playing drums too, and so I
So,
bought the albums and I would learn them. I learned all the music playing to the records.
so I'm going to ask how many since you've been playing with the Fudge or
Hmm.
Cactus, how many countries have you been to?
Let me see. Well,
Because
over here, most
and
the
they're
good.
still touring. They're still touring, folks.
Oh yeah, we were in most of the European countries. Let me see. In Scandinavia, I went Sweden, Denmark, Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, France, Italy, Austria, Czech Republic. We've all been to. I might be leaving one out here, and in both coasts, coast to coast in the United States,
Right.
we've
Oh
been
yeah,
to as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've done over the years now. I've done hundreds, literally hundreds of gigs with them to try. I can't remember them all at this point, but so because I've been full time with them now for 15 years. So, but I finally got to meet them in 1997. Well, I met Vinny in 1997. I was I was teaching myself to program PCs. That was when the internet was brand new. Everybody was still dialing up and stuff. And I tried to make a long story short. I was trying to I was learning basic programming, and then a club that I belonged to wanted me to make a website for them. I said, well, that's not the same thing, but it's, oh, you're a programmer, you can do it. So I was trying, you know, it's like, oh, you can drive. It says, well, we want you to fly my helicopter. So, well, you can drive a car. You can fly a helicopter. No, they're both vehicles. It's not the same thing. But I was learning to do it, and I discovered a fan site for Vanilla Fudge early on. It was brand new by a guy in Las Vegas, and it was really a beautiful website considering the internet was so new. It was very well done, and I wrote the guy. He and I became pen pals, or email pals, shall we say. He lived in Las Vegas. I lived here in Jersey, and he thought it would be fun to have somebody work with him. He knew I wanted to learn, so he was over the phone and via email teaching me, tricks and stuff to help me with my website. And then he brought me on as a sort of a co-webmaster with the Vanilla Fudge fan site, and over the next year, one by one, all four original guys on the Fudge came online. They discovered the site, and the webmaster he put them all together, and they declared it their official site. So I think Carmine and Timmy, well, they all lived in California, and I forget where Mark was living. He might have been in California too. But
I think he was in Florida when I connected with Timmy and Carmine.
yeah.
I believe Mark was living in Florida.
It could
I,
be. Yeah,
I
it could be.
believe.
I found out later he was living right here in Jersey for a while. He was actually living in my hometown for a while. Yeah, for couple of years. Yeah, I found that out later. Actually, right across the street from my father's church, believe it or not. That was but that he had already left before I found out. But where was I going with this? Oh yeah, I found out. I discovered that Vinny lived in New York State, and he only lived about 45 minutes from me, and we connected on the phone, and he did a local gig, and I went to meet him at that, and we kind of hit it off and became friends. We exchanged phone numbers, and then at the beginning I didn't tell him I was a musician, but I was kind of starstruck, meeting Vinny and hanging out with him and stuff, but he needed a bass player, and we jammed together. I invited him. Every summer at my house, I had a kind of a secluded house in the woods of West Milford where I used to live. And every summer we'd have like a picnic jam session thing because we could make as much noise as we wanted. And I invited Vinny to it, and he came. And we jammed a lot, and we jammed on some Fudge songs. So he found out that I knew all the Fudge material and on stuff on bass, and even on Hammond. I have a B3. Actually, you can't see it, but it's just on the other side of the room over here. Because actually, when Vanilla Fudge rehearses, we rehearse right here in this room, actually, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have a little mini studio here in my family room. I've got my old drum kit and the B3 and a small PA system. But anyway, so Vinny decided to put a new project together. He asked me to be his bass player. So we were working together. We did a few gigs with his band, the Vince Martell Band. That was started in 2000. But the Fudge actually got back together in 1998 without Mark Stein, and Bill Pascali was singing and playing keys. But Vinny invited me to the rehearsal, and that's where I met Timmy finally, because I met Timmy because the webmaster had us he wanted to do individual websites for the individual members. So he let me do one for Timmy, which is actually still up, and it's horrible. It's like 35-year-old technology, because I sort of gave it up. The technology got so out of hand, I couldn't keep up with it because I was a backyard guy. I mean, you need college courses to learn it now, to do it properly. But I kept it up even since he passed away. It's just a tribute site. It's static. It's just there. But Timmy stuck with me all those years as his webmaster when he really should have gotten somebody better than me. But he was a good friend, and he stuck with me on it stuff. So then I went to one of their rehearsals, and as I said, and I got to meet Timmy and Carmine, and they hadn't played together in quite a few years. I think since '87 was the last time they played. So that was like 11 years they hadn't played together, and they started forgetting some of the songs. And there was a little audience in the rehearsal studio there. It was almost like a mini theater actually. It had a stage and about 15, 20 chairs set up in the back, folding chairs set up in the back. And, they would stop and they go, "How did this go? How?" They go, and I'm sitting there, should I? And I stood up and I said, I say, "Oh, the chord is B minor there." And they all looked at me like I was crazy. And then, and then Vinny would go, and he goes, "He's right," like that. So every time they did that, I did that a couple of times, and as time went on, if they stopped, Carmine would just go, "Hey, Pete, what is it?" So I got to know the guys then, and it was I actually taught Bill Pascali how to play "Keep Me Hanging On" the right way. Wow. on the organ because I played the keys. It's another story. Actually, one time I subbed on organ for Mark Stein one time, believe it or not. So That's a whole nother story. That was about 10 years ago. But yeah, so it was, so now fast forward another 4 years, 2002. I was working a day job at the time because I was married. I had twin sons, small children and stuff at the time. Well, I guess by that time they were 12 years old, but still, um, I had a day job. I was mainly doing local stuff, a local musician. And I was in my office, and the receptionist says, "Hey, Pete, I got a Carmine on the phone for you." And I said, "Carmine? I don't know any Carmine." And now I met Carmine that one time, and I hadn't seen him in 4 years. Now I'd never had any contact with him again. Carmine? I said, "Okay." I picked it up, and sure enough, it was him. He says, "Hey, Pete, it's
Wow.
Carmine." I says, I still remember. He says, "I'm a really good detective, huh? I found you."
Wow.
Yeah. I said, "Yeah, Carmine. Yeah. Well, what's this all about?" He said, "Well," said they were supposed to leave the next day. That was on a Thursday. I remember this. It was on a Thursday afternoon, late in the afternoon. They were scheduled to do 3 shows over that weekend, starting a new tour. And Carmine said they had just that morning had put Timmy in the hospital with pneumonia.
Mm.
And Vinny told them that I knew all their material and I could possibly do it. And of course, now I'm scared shitless. Of course, you know that. I mean, can I say that? And can I
Yeah,
use
yeah.
those words on this podcast? You have to bleep me out. I don't know. And so I just said, ah, hell yeah, I could do it. I could do it. And they came to my house that night at 10 o'clock because still had the instruments. They showed up at my house from New York at 10 o'clock that night for an audition slash rehearsal, and we went right through the set. And this is in my basement, my other house, and they kind of hubbubbed on the other side of the room and left me all alone. And Carmine comes over and pulls me against this wall. He says, I think this is going to work." So the next day, I had less than 24 hours notice. I left the next day with them, and we did 3 shows. We started with at the Stone Pony in Jersey, in Asbury Park in New Jersey. Then we went down to Virginia, a place called Jack's Music Hall, I believe it was, a small theater. And then the next night up at BB King's in the city.
Hmm.
And Timmy was sick for quite a while after that, and then after that he had the motorcycle accident. So I actually subbed for him for about 6 months. After that we did Ohio, we did Seattle, Washington, we did a couple of gigs up and down the California coast, and we went to Sweden and Denmark in those 6 months. And then I was using my vacation time. And then I ran out of vacation time, so I couldn't do it anymore. That's when T.M. Stevens took over. You remember T.M. Stevens was in the band for a little while? Oh, you know,
No,
yeah.
no.
I mean, great player. I'm not sure what a match it was, but he was an amazing player. May he rest in peace. He was a great guy too. He passed away last year, and so they got T.M. Stevens to take over for a while, and then after that, Timmy came back. But over the years, back in then so that was 2002. Then in 2005, they no, not five, because they went on the road. That's when they went on the road with the Doors in 2005. And it was 2007. They called me to be tour manager for them. I did. I was a keyboard tech for Mark. They did a show. They opened for Deep Purple at Radio City in New York, and Mark brought me on as his keyboard tech because he knew I knew the B3 for that show, and I was also kind of Timmy's bass tech as well. I worked for both of them that night, and then 2000. I think that was 2006 or maybe early 2007. But later on, I stayed on as tour manager for the band for a year. So.
Hmm.
And I did a couple of odd gigs here and there because there was a little dispute, I think, and Carmine and Timmy left for a while. So then it was Vinny and Mark and me and another drummer, another great drummer, Jimmy Jack Tamburo, and may he rest in peace too. He passed away. Another great drummer and a great singer as well. We did a couple of gigs as Vanilla Fudge's Mark Stein and Vince Martell. We did some gigs, and then 2009, Timmy retired completely. And then they didn't do anything in 2009 at all. But then Carmine got a gig at BB King's doing he was a featured artist for, he was involved, and I can't remember the name of it. It was a music charity for children, and he was one of their celebrity endorsers or whatever like that. So he was like the featured artist at this fundraiser. They're having an auctioning off guitars and stuff like that. And he brought in the fudge, and they brought me in.
For a while, wasn't he also doing things with his brother Vinny? They do a piece in Appice or something. They'd
Oh
play
yeah,
against one another.
oh yeah, they still do that. I mean, it's that's alongside the fudge. He didn't go. It wasn't like the fudge stopped and whatever. He a month he'd be with the fudge, a month he'd be with Cactus, a month he'd be with his brother. Fitting everything all in between stuff like
Right,
that.
right,
I don't
right.
think
Now,
he's done any shows with his brother in quite a while now yet
no,
because
I don't
because
think so either. He's been involved with that Rod Stewart cover band now.
right,
So,
and Vinny's been busy too with his projects as well.
uh,
Was it Dio or something?
good choice of
He,
water, by the way. We're
oh,
not
thanks.
sponsored, folks,
Oh yeah,
but
no,
good choice of water.
but
Um, okay, so what else are you doing besides vanilla fudge or cactus?
um, right now, well, I'm not doing Cactus anymore. I was in Cactus for about 5 years. I was full time with Cactus for about from 2000. I think it was from 2011 to 2016. I believe it was somewhere around in there. 2010, maybe 2010. Timmy himself called me to sub for him in Cactus once.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
he called me himself and asked me to do it the first time. He figured if I knew all the Vanilla Fudge songs, I'd know all the Cactus songs too. Well, I certainly had listened to them, but I honestly hadn't learned them because I was a little bit older and I wasn't locking myself in my room with my bass so much. I discovered girls, by the time I was like 19 or 20 when, 19 or so when Cactus came out, so I listened to it. So, but I said, yeah, I can do it. So I hurried up and learned all the songs. But Werner Fritzings had come back in the band
Oh,
at that
wow.
point.
Oh, I saw them one time with Werner and I guess Hitchings, the piano player,
Oh,
Dwayne.
Dwayne,
Yeah,
Dwayne,
yeah. I saw
Dwayne
that
Hitchens. Yeah,
with the Peter French, I think, the
right,
vocalist. I
right.
saw them one time in Asbury Park.
Yeah,
They came and went. Yeah,
yeah. I had never seen them actually because Cactus went through a few changes, almost a repeat of history in the early
yeah, yeah.
2000s. Originally, it started out with McCarty and
Right.
Timmy and Carmine and Jimmy Coons as the singer. Obviously, Rusty was gone, but then Jim McCarty left again, and then they brought Warner Fritchings in, and that's when I subbed for Timmy, and then Timmy came back, and then Werner Fritchings. No, then in 2009 Timmy
I'm
retired
really glad this
completely.
isn't on a chart with lines
Yeah.
going from one to the other. But
Well, pay
the point
attention.
is,
Pay
as
attention.
well.
There's going to be questions later, so
Yeah, well,
pay attention.
I might come in at maybe a B. I'll come in at a B. That's
So,
about it.
well, at any
But
at
look,
a,
you look happy. That's all that matters is that you're happy.
right.
You look at the life that you had. You started seeing these guys when you were a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
and you're playing with them. It's like from time to when I used to just my phone would ring and I'd see that it would be Timmy. Before I would just normally just, yeah, hello. I'd stop and go, Tim Bogart's calling me. Or the
Mm-hmm.
same thing when I did book tours with Carmine. We'd
Mm-hmm.
just bullshit with one another and we'd call or he'd
Mm-hmm.
return my call. And it
Mm-hmm.
just makes you stop and go, the only thing that could make this better is if it said John Lennon. Then I go, okay, 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 John Lennon. But I've had the pleasure of speaking to Zappa. I've had the pleasure of seeing being feet away from Ringo and Paul. Never got the opportunity to see George in any fashion, but to just we grew up with these people at a level
Hmm.
that were above. Okay, yeah, there's the Stones, but there was the Fudge.
Yeah.
That's how
Oh,
we
I know.
looked at it.
It's funny. When they are regular guys and they've been friends for many years now, and you'd think that when it would hit me as being on stage, but it isn't. When I'm on stage with them, it's like the music and them involved, and that they're the guys. Honestly, somebody else asked me about this recently, and when it really hits me is after sound check and the theater's dark and empty, and I'll take a walk to the back of the theater and look down on the stage, and you know what it's like. Stage dark is waiting for a concert, right? The power that's there on the stage, and you're waiting for your heroes to come out and actually see them, and I'm
Hmm.
like, and I look down there and I see the B Tree and Carmine's drums, and it says Vanilla Fudge on, like, I was like, and I go, damn, that's my bass down there on the stage. I'm not going to be up here watching them. I'm going
That's
to be
right.
down there. I'm
That's
actually looking
right.
at it, looking at the stage from the back of the theater. It's actually larger than life than actually being on it. It's kind of weird. That's when it really hits me, like the emotionally, and I really get into it. But it's funny. And every time, I believe in God, and everybody's got a purpose. And I told the guys, I say, um, you're familiar with, you keep hanging on when Mark's doing his organ thing and the rest of us aren't playing, and we sort of freeze on stage. And when he's doing that, the second time at the end of the song, I'm just standing there. I'm saying, thank you, Lord, for letting me play this song just one more time,
Oh,
every time, because it's like you never know. It's like I can't believe it. That that's it hits me then too. But I'm actually playing it. You keep hanging on with these guys. So
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
it's still beyond belief. It's beyond
It
belief
is.
for me.
It is. I mean, I remember when I was 14, 15, and we were playing in our first little high school band,
Hmm.
and we would play that, because one of the guys from the older band came and taught us the chord changes,
Hmm.
and that you'll go, oh wow, is that what they do? Okay, great.
Hmm.
But our organ player back then, we only had a Farfisa. Yeah.
Oh
through
yeah, my first band, we had a Farfisa, and he had a
through
145 Leslie. He had a
through
Farfisa.
no, not even through a Leslie. We
Oh
had
yeah,
the Ampeg bass amp where you turned it over
the
to see
Portaflex,
the
the
tubes
B15.
up
Yeah,
on top with
the
the 15
B15.
on top. And that's what it went through. And even though it didn't have that swirling sound, just to play those notes, it was like, wow. And then the drum is going to come in, and then we all just come in with that E minor. It's like, oh, that did it. That did it. Okay, so anyway, that's it. Thank you, Pete. We love you. We love you. We really do.
Well,
Uh,
thank you. I love you guys
Yeah.
too. Thank you so
Thanks
much
for
for having
sharing
me.
that story. I'm not a musician, but I've always had musician friends. And so I kind of lived through all of you. Um, and because I can only imagine, like, yeah, what it feels like to get on stage and play for people
after
and
this, I'll be
have that
sending her
talent.
YouTube links
Okay.
to the songs she needs to hear.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would
Okay.
be great.
Yeah. Well, nice
So
to meet you, Pete, and I really appreciate you sharing your
yeah,
story.
Pete,
Oh,
maybe
sure.
again, maybe again, if Carmine comes to Jersey or something like that, we can get
Hmm.
a couple of you on screen at the same time. I
Okay.
think that'd be a lot of fun.
Okay. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. I would love to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
We've done it before, actually, I believe,
oh, I'm
once or
sure.
twice. Yeah.
I'm sure,
Yep.
but please tell everybody I said hi, and tell Carmine I look forward to talking to him again very soon.
Okay, I will. All
All right.
right, John, Kelly,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Yeah.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Pete.
Thanks.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
All views expressed in this video belong to Kelly Nicholson, John D'Amore, and guests. These discussions do not represent the opinions of any entity whatsoever with which they have been affiliated now or will be in the future. The opinions expressed are solely theirs, and since they are critically thinking human beings, these views are subject to change, subject to revision, and subject to rethinking at any time. These conversations are not meant to be taken as advice and are only for the purpose of entertainment. All statements may be based on hearsay and not necessarily valid proof of any claims in this video. It is not our intention to teach or advise on any topic. Unless otherwise noted, all photos are public domain. Thanks for watching A Slice of Life with Kellie and John.